The businessman is getting ready to leave when his twin daughters run and block the car in desperation. "Don't drive, Mom, cut the brakes," one of them screams, trembling. In the next 2 minutes, something shocking happens. If this story caught your interest, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and tell us which city you're watching us from. Let's continue. I promise this will be the best story you will ever hear in your life. The morning air in Charlotte, North Carolina, carried the crisp promise of autumn. Robert Harrison, a successful real estate developer, walked briskly toward his silver sedan parked in the spacious garage of his colonial-style home. His mind was already racing through the day's meetings, contracts to review, properties to inspect. The routine had become his refuge, a way to avoid the emptiness that still lingered in the corners of his heart. But today, routine shattered. Two figures burst from the shadows near the garage entrance. Emma and Olivia, his 12-year-old twin daughters, ran toward him with wild eyes and trembling hands. Their faces were pale, streaked with tears. Emma reached him first, grabbing his arm with surprising strength. "Dad, stop! Don't get in the car!" Her voice cracked with panic. Robert froze, his hand on the door handle. "What? What's wrong?" Olivia stepped forward, her breath coming in ragged gasps. She held up her phone, her fingers shaking so badly she almost dropped it. It's Jennifer. She did something to the car. She cut the brakes." The words hung in the air like a physical blow. Robert stared at his daughters, confusion and disbelief washing over him. Jennifer? His wife? The woman who had brought order back to his chaotic life after losing Sarah. "That's impossible," he said, his voice hollow. "Why would you say something like that?" Emma's tears fell faster now. "Because we heard her, Dad. We recorded it." Olivia pressed play on her phone. The audio was muffled at first, but then Jennifer's voice came through, clear and cold. "These children have never accepted me. They never will. But I'm going to handle this my way, one way or another." Robert felt the ground shift beneath him. He looked at the car, then back at his daughters. Their fear was real. Their terror was genuine. And suddenly, fragments of the past few months began assembling themselves into a picture he had refused to see. 3 years ago, Sarah had passed away after a sudden illness. The grief had been unbearable. Robert had thrown himself into work, leaving the twins to navigate their sorrow largely alone. He knew he had failed them, but he couldn't face the pain. When he met Jennifer at a charity gala 18 months later, she seemed like an answer to his prayers. Elegant, composed, capable. She took charge of the household, managed the staff, organized the girls' schedules. She made everything easier, or so he thought. The twins had never warmed to her. Robert had chalked it up to loyalty to their mother, to the natural resistance children have toward change. But now, standing in the garage with his daughters' frightened faces before him, he realized he had been willfully blind. "Show me everything," he said quietly. Inside the house, in Emma's bedroom, the girls pulled out a small notebook. Page after page documented incidents Robert had dismissed or never even noticed. A locket with Sarah's picture, gone. The twins' favorite books, thrown away. Harsh words spoken when Robert wasn't around. Punishments for minor infractions. A systematic erasure of their mother's memory from the home. "She told us you were sick," Olivia whispered. "That stress was bad for your heart, that if we upset you, something terrible might happen. She made us feel like we were hurting you just by existing." Robert's chest tightened. He had noticed the girls becoming quieter, more withdrawn. Their teachers had mentioned it at parent conferences. But Jennifer had been there, smooth and reassuring, explaining it away as normal adolescent moodiness. He had believed her because it was easier than confronting the truth. "Why didn't you tell me?" he asked, though he already knew the answer. "We tried," Emma said. "But you were always working, and when you were home she was always there, watching. We were scared." Robert pulled them both into his arms. "I'm so sorry. I should have seen it. I should have listened." That night, after ensuring the car was inspected and the brakes were indeed tampered with, Robert confronted Jennifer in the study. She stood by the window, her posture perfect, her expression unreadable. "The girls showed me the recording," he said. Jennifer turned slowly. For a moment, Her mask slipped, and he saw something cold and calculating in her eyes. Then, just as quickly, it was gone. Her face crumpled. She sank to her knees, sobbing. "I can't do this anymore," she wailed. "They hate me, Robert. No matter what I do, they hate me. I've tried so hard and they reject me at every turn. I just wanted to disappear. I wanted the pain to stop." It was a performance, Robert realized, a desperate attempt to manipulate him through sympathy, but this time he saw through it. "You tampered with my car," he said evenly. "You put my life in danger." "I wasn't thinking clearly," she gasped. "I was in so much pain. I just wanted it all to end." "Get out," Robert said. "Pack your things and leave. Tonight." Jennifer's tears stopped abruptly. She stood, her face hardening. "You'll regret this. Those girls have poisoned you against me." "No," Robert said. "I poisoned myself by not paying attention." The police were called. Evidence was collected. Jennifer was arrested. The story made local headlines. Prominent developer's wife arrested for attempted harm. The scandal was brutal, but Robert focused on what mattered: his daughters. In the weeks that followed, he began the painful process of rebuilding. He cut back his work hours. He attended the girls' soccer games and piano recitals. He listened when they talked, really listened. And slowly, he began to see them come back to life. But one evening, while going through old files in his home office, Robert found something that made his blood run cold. It was a folder Jennifer had kept, hidden in the back of a drawer. Inside were printed emails and documents related to another family in Virginia. A widower with 2 children, a woman who had entered their lives, gained their trust, and then vanished after a suspicious incident involving a car. The pattern was unmistakable. Robert showed the documents to Detective Laura Chen, who had handled Jennifer's arrest. She studied them carefully, her expression growing more serious. "We need to investigate this further," she said. "If this is what I think it is, your family wasn't her first target." Meanwhile, Emma and Olivia were dealing with their own discovery. While cleaning out the attic, they found a box of their mother's belongings that had been hidden away. Inside were letters Sarah had written, but never sent. One of them was addressed to Robert. "My dearest Robert," it began, "I need to tell you something that's been troubling me. There's a woman you've mentioned from work, someone you've had coffee with a few times. Her name is Jennifer. I can't explain it, but something about her feels wrong. The way she asks about the girls, about our home, about our life, it feels intrusive, calculated. Please be careful. I know this sounds paranoid, but a mother's instinct is rarely wrong." The letter was dated 6 months before Sarah's passing. Emma and Olivia brought the letter to their father. Robert read it 3 times, his hands shaking. Sarah had sensed the danger even then, and he had never known. "Dad," Olivia said softly, "do you think Jennifer knew Mom?" It was a question that opened. A door Robert wasn't sure he wanted to walk through, but he had to know. Detective Chen's investigation uncovered more. Jennifer had worked briefly at the hospital where Sarah had been treated. She had access to patient records. She had known about Sarah's condition, about Robert's wealth, about the family's vulnerability. "She targeted you," Detective Chen explained. "She researched your family, learned about your wife's illness, and positioned herself to enter your life at exactly the right moment." The trial was set for early spring. Jennifer's defense team argued emotional distress, claiming she had been overwhelmed by the twins' rejection and had acted irrationally. But the evidence was mounting. The Virginia case was reopened. Another family came forward with a similar story. Robert sat in the courtroom, flanked by his daughters, and watched as the woman he had trusted was revealed to be someone else entirely, a predator who had studied grief and exploited it. But even as justice moved forward, Robert knew the real work was just beginning. He had to rebuild trust with Emma and Olivia. He had to prove that he would never again choose convenience over their well-being. One night, as they sat together in the living room, Emma asked the question that had been haunting all of them. "Dad, how did we not see it sooner?" Robert thought carefully before answering. "Because she was very good at hiding, and because I wanted to believe everything was fine. I was running from pain instead of facing it, but you two were braver than I was. You saw the truth and you saved us." Olivia leaned against his shoulder. Do you think there are others? Other families she hurt? I don't know, Robert admitted, but we're going to find out. As autumn deepened into winter, the Harrison family began to heal, but they also began to search. With Detective Chen's help, they started looking into Jennifer's past, tracing her movements, her previous identities, her other victims. What they found would change everything they thought they knew about the woman who had almost destroyed them, and it would reveal that some dangers don't end with an arrest. They simply wait, hidden in the shadows of the past, for the right moment to resurface. The Charlotte courthouse stood imposing against the grey March sky. Robert Harrison walked up the stone steps with Emma and Olivia on either side of him. The past months had been a whirlwind of depositions, evidence gathering and sleepless nights. But today the trial would finally begin. Inside, the courtroom filled quickly. Reporters lined the back rows. Curious onlookers whispered among themselves. Robert kept his eyes forward, his hands resting protectively on his daughter's shoulders. Jennifer entered in handcuffs, dressed in a modest navy suit that seemed carefully chosen to project innocence. Her hair was pulled back simply. Her makeup was minimal. She looked nothing like the polished, commanding woman who had once run his household. But Robert knew better now. Every choice she made was calculated. The prosecution's case was methodical and devastating. Detective Chen testified about the tampering with the car's brake lines. Mechanics explained the precise nature of the sabotage. Audio experts authenticated the recording the twins had made. Teachers from the girls' school described the changes they had witnessed in Emma and Olivia's behavior after Jennifer entered their lives. But it was the testimony about Jennifer's past that truly shocked the courtroom. A man named David Mitchell took the stand. He was in his 50s with graying hair and tired eyes. He lived in Richmond, Virginia, and he had a story that mirrored Robert's almost exactly. "I lost my wife to cancer 7 years ago," David said, his voice steady but pained. "I had 2 sons, ages 9 and 11 at the time. About 6 months after my wife passed, I met a woman named Jessica Winters at a support group for grieving families. She was kind, understanding. She said she had lost her husband. We started dating. Within a year we were married." The courtroom was silent. "At first everything seemed fine," David continued. "But then small things started happening. My son's belongings would disappear. They became anxious, withdrawn. Jessica told me they were acting out because they resented her. I believed her. I was so grateful to have someone helping me manage everything." Robert felt Emma's hand slip into his. He squeezed it gently. "Then one day, my older son found something," David said. "A bottle of pills hidden in Jessica's bathroom. They were sleeping pills, a large quantity. He also found printouts about our family's finances, our insurance policies. When I confronted her, she broke down crying, said she was depressed, that my sons hated her and she couldn't take it anymore. She left that night, just vanished. I tried to find her to get answers, but it was like she had never existed. The name she had given me was fake. Her background was fabricated." The prosecutor stepped forward. "Mr. Mitchell, do you recognize the defendant in this courtroom?" David looked directly at Jennifer. "Yes, that's Jessica Winters, or whatever her real name is." A murmur rippled through the courtroom. Jennifer's expression remained neutral, but Robert saw her jaw tighten. 2 more witnesses came forward with similar stories. Different cities, different names, but the same pattern. Jennifer had been targeting vulnerable families for years, gaining access to their homes and finances, then disappearing before she could be caught. But with Robert, something had changed. She had stayed. She had escalated. During a recess, Detective Chen pulled Robert aside. "We found something else," she said quietly. "We executed a search warrant on a storage unit Jennifer had been renting under another name. Inside, we found files on at least a dozen other families. Research, photographs, financial records. She had been planning her next targets." Robert felt sick. "How long has she been doing this?" "We're still investigating, but we think at least a decade, maybe longer." That afternoon, Emma approached the prosecutor with something she and Olivia had discovered. While going through old belongings in their room, they had found a small flash drive taped to the underside of a drawer. It had been hidden so well they had almost missed it. "We think Jennifer hid it there and forgot about it," Emma explained. "Or maybe she thought no one would ever find it." The contents of the flash drive were damning. Videos of Jennifer practicing different accents and mannerisms, documents outlining how to research wealthy widowers, lists of support groups and charity events where grieving families might be found, notes on how to gain children's trust, and when that failed, how to isolate them. It was a manual for predatory manipulation. The prosecutor entered the flash drive into evidence. When its contents were revealed in court, even Jennifer's defense attorney looked shaken. But Jennifer's team wasn't giving up. They argued that she had been suffering from severe mental health issues, that she had experienced trauma in her own past that had warped her perception of reality. They brought in psychiatrists who testified about dissociative disorders and complex PTSD. "My client is not a monster," her attorney argued. "She is a deeply damaged person who needs treatment, not punishment." Robert listened to the arguments and felt a strange mixture of anger and pity. Whatever had made Jennifer into what she was, she had still made choices. She had still hurt people. She had still put his daughters in danger. On the fourth day of the trial, the prosecution called Emma and Olivia to testify. Robert had tried to shield them from this, but they had insisted. Emma spoke first. She was nervous, her voice small at first, but it grew stronger as she continued. "Jennifer made us feel like we didn't belong in our own home," she said. "She told us our mum wouldn't want us to be sad, that we needed to move on. But then she would get rid of our mum's things. She said Dad was fragile, that we were making him sick by being difficult. We were scared all the time." Olivia's testimony was equally powerful. "We tried to tell Dad, but she was always there. She made it seem like we were the problem, like we were the ones being cruel to her. And Dad was so tired and sad that he believed her." Jennifer's attorney tried to paint the girls as confused, as influenced by their father's anger. But Emma and Olivia held firm. They had lived through it. They knew the truth. The jury deliberated for 2 days. When they returned, the verdict was unanimous. Guilty on all charges: attempted harm, reckless endangerment, fraud, and conspiracy. Jennifer showed no emotion as the verdict was read, but as she was led from the courtroom, she turned and looked directly at Robert. For just a moment her mask fell completely. What he saw in her eyes was not remorse or sadness. It was cold, calculating rage. The sentencing hearing came 3 weeks later. The judge was a stern woman in her 60s who had clearly been disturbed by the evidence presented. "Mrs. Harrison," she said, though Jennifer had never legally taken Robert's name, "you have engaged in a pattern of predatory behavior that has harmed multiple families over many years. You targeted people at their most vulnerable, exploited their grief, and endangered their children. This court finds your actions to be calculated, deliberate, and devoid of genuine remorse." She sentenced Jennifer to 15 years in prison with the possibility of parole after 10. As Robert left the courthouse with his daughters, reporters swarmed them. He made a brief statement thanking the prosecution team and urging other families who might have encountered Jennifer to come forward. Then he took Emma and Olivia home. That night they sat together in the living room, the same room where so much pain had unfolded. But it felt different now. Lighter. "Is it really over?" Olivia asked. "The legal part is," Robert said, "but healing takes longer. We'll get there together." Emma leaned against him. "Dad, what are we going to do with Mum's letters?" Robert had been thinking about that. Sarah's letters, especially the one warning him about Jennifer, had become precious to him. They were proof that Sarah had been trying to protect them, even when she was gone. "I think we should keep them," he said. "They're part of our story, part of how we survived." In the months that followed, the Harrison family focused on rebuilding. Robert sold the colonial house, too full of bad memories, and bought a smaller home closer to the girls' school. He cut his work hours permanently, making sure he was present for dinners, homework, and the small moments. That mattered. Emma and Olivia joined a support group for children who had experienced manipulation and abuse. They made friends who understood what they had been through. Slowly, their confidence returned. Detective Chen continued investigating Jennifer's past. She found evidence of at least 8 other families who had been targeted. Some came forward to share their stories. Others preferred to remain private, simply grateful that Jennifer was finally behind bars. One evening, as spring turned to summer, Robert took the girls to visit Sarah's grave. They brought flowers and sat on the grass, talking to her as if she were there. "We found your letters, Mum," Emma said softly. "You were right about Jennifer. You tried to warn us." "We're okay now," Olivia added. "Dad's really here with us. We're a family again." Robert placed his hand on the headstone. "I'm sorry I didn't listen," he whispered. "I'm sorry I let fear keep me from being the father they needed. But I promise, I'll never make that mistake again." As they drove home, the setting sun painted the sky in shades of orange and gold. Robert glanced in the rearview mirror at his daughters, who were laughing about something on Olivia's phone. They looked like themselves again, happy, safe. He knew the scars would always be there. The experience had changed all of them, but they had survived. And more than that, they had learned something crucial, that love requires presence, that trust must be earned, and that sometimes the people who seem the weakest, like 2 12-year-old girls, are actually the strongest of all. Jennifer's case became a cautionary tale, studied by law enforcement and mental health professionals. New protocols were developed for identifying predatory patterns in relationships. Support groups for widowed parents began including education about protecting vulnerable families from exploitation. The Harrison family's story, painful as it was, helped others, and in the end that gave their suffering meaning. 2 years had passed since Jennifer's conviction, and the Harrison family had found a rhythm that felt almost normal. Robert had become the father he should have been all along, present and attentive. Emma and Olivia, now 14, were thriving in school, their confidence restored. The nightmare seemed to be behind them. But on a cold November morning, everything shifted again. Robert was making breakfast when his phone rang. It was Detective Chen, and her voice carried an urgency. That made his stomach drop. "Robert, I need you to come to the station. It's about Jennifer." An hour later, Robert sat across from Detective Chen in a small conference room. She slid a folder across the table. "Jennifer's attorney filed an appeal 3 months ago," she explained. "They're claiming she was mentally incompetent at the time of the crimes. They've brought in new psychiatric experts who say she was experiencing a severe dissociative episode and couldn't distinguish right from wrong." Robert felt the room tilt. Can they do that after all this time? They can try. And unfortunately, they've found a technicality in how some of the evidence was processed. There's a hearing scheduled for next month. If the judge agrees to review the case, Jennifer could get a reduced sentence, or worse, a new trial. The news hit Robert like a physical blow. He had promised Emma and Olivia that it was over, that they were safe. Now he would have to tell them that the woman who had terrorized them might have another chance to manipulate the system. That evening, he sat down with the twins in their living room. He explained the situation as gently as he could, but there was no softening the reality. Emma's face went pale. "Does that mean she could get out?" "Not immediately," Robert said. "But it means we might have to go through this again. Testimony, evidence, all of it." Olivia stood abruptly and walked to the window. "I can't do this again, Dad. I can't relive it." Robert went to her, placing a hand on her shoulder. "I know, but we're stronger now. And we have something we didn't have before. We have the truth, and we have each other." The following week, as the girls tried to process the news, they decided to do something productive with their anxiety. They returned to the attic, the place where they had first discovered their mother's letters. There was still so much they hadn't gone through, boxes of memories they had been too afraid to open. In a dusty corner, beneath old winter coats and forgotten holiday decorations, Emma found a small wooden chest. It was locked, but the key was taped to the bottom. Inside, they found more letters from their mother, but these were different. They were addressed to them, meant to be opened when they were older. "My dearest Emma and Olivia," one letter began. "If you're reading this, it means I'm no longer with you. I want you to know that my greatest joy in life was being your mother. But I also want you to know something important. Trust your instincts. If something feels wrong, it probably is. Don't let anyone make you doubt what you know to be true." The words felt prophetic, as if Sarah had known they would need this guidance. But there was another letter, one that made Emma's hands shake as she read it aloud. It was dated just weeks before. "Sarah's passing. Robert, my love, I need to tell you something I've been afraid to say. That woman, Jennifer, the one from your office who's been so helpful during my illness, she's not who she seems. I've seen the way she looks at our home, at our children, at our life. It's not kindness in her eyes, it's hunger. Please, when I'm gone, be careful. Don't let her near our family. Protect our girls." Olivia's voice was barely a whisper. Mom knew. She knew exactly what Jennifer was. The twins brought the letters to their father. Robert read them with tears streaming down his face. Sarah had tried to warn him, had seen the danger clearly, and he had been too blind to listen. "She was protecting us even then," Emma said softly. The discovery of the new letters gave Robert an idea. He contacted the prosecutor's office and shared them. While they couldn't be used as direct evidence against Jennifer, they established a pattern of predatory behavior that predated even the earliest cases they had uncovered. Meanwhile, Detective Chen's investigation had continued. She had been quietly tracking down other potential victims, and she had found something significant. A woman, named Patricia Reeves, living in Seattle, had come forward with a story that connected directly to Jennifer's past. Patricia had been Jennifer's college roommate 20 years ago. She described a young woman who was charming and intelligent, but also deeply manipulative. Jennifer had stolen Patricia's identity briefly, using her credit cards and social security number to open accounts. When confronted, Jennifer had disappeared, leaving Patricia to clean up the financial mess. "She told me once that she envied people with normal families," Patricia said during her video deposition. "She said she wanted what they had, and she would do whatever it took to get it. I thought she was just talking. I didn't realize she meant it literally." This testimony painted a picture of someone who had been planning and executing these schemes for decades, someone whose actions were deliberate and calculated, not the result of temporary mental incompetence. As the hearing date approached, Emma and Olivia made a decision. They wanted to attend. Robert tried to dissuade them, worried about the emotional toll, but they were adamant. "She tried to make us invisible," Emma said. "She tried to erase us, but we're still here, and we want her to see that." The hearing was held in the same courthouse where Jennifer had been convicted. The atmosphere was tense. Jennifer's new legal team presented their psychiatric experts, who testified about complex trauma and dissociative disorders. They painted Jennifer as a victim of her own damaged psyche. But the prosecution countered with Patricia Reeves's testimony, with the timeline of Jennifer's calculated actions, and with the newly discovered letters from Sarah. They argued that Jennifer's behavior showed clear planning and awareness, not mental incompetence. Emma and Olivia sat in the front row, their presence a silent testament to the real victims in this case. When Jennifer was brought in, she looked directly at them. For a moment, something flickered in her expression. Was it remorse, recognition, or just another calculated performance? The judge, a different one from the original trial, listened carefully to both sides. After 2 days of testimony, she announced her decision. While the defense has presented compelling arguments about the defendant's mental state, the preponderance of evidence shows a pattern of deliberate, planned behavior spanning multiple decades. The original conviction stands. The appeal is denied. The relief in the courtroom was palpable. Robert pulled his daughters close, and for the first time in months, he felt like he could breathe again. Outside the courthouse, a small group of reporters waited. Robert made a brief statement, his daughters standing beside him. "Today, justice was reaffirmed," he said, "but more importantly, we were reminded that the truth matters, that victims' voices matter. My daughters showed incredible courage, not just in stopping a dangerous person, but in continuing to stand up for what's right, even when it's difficult." Emma stepped forward, surprising everyone, including her father. "We want other kids to know that if something feels wrong, you should speak up. Even if adults don't listen at first, keep trying. You know your own truth." As they walked away from the courthouse, Olivia asked the question that had been on all their minds. "Is it really over now?" Robert thought carefully before answering. "I think so, but even if it's not, we know we can handle it, together." That night, the Harrison family did something they hadn't done in years. They looked through old photo albums, the ones from before Sarah's illness, before Jennifer, before everything fell apart. They laughed at funny memories, cried at bittersweet ones, and talked about Sarah as if she were there with them. "I think Mum would be proud of us," Olivia said. Robert smiled, looking at the faces of his daughters, so much stronger than they had been 2 years ago. "I know she would be. I'm proud of us too." The experience had changed them all, left scars that would never fully fade, but it had also taught them something invaluable. That family isn't just about blood or history. It's about showing up, listening, protecting each other, and never giving up on the truth. And sometimes the greatest strength comes not from never falling, but from getting back up together every single time.